So I've never done this before, but uh, with what happened with our friend Erin last Saturday, I feel like maybe sharing could help someone. Um, I understand what Erin went through with his depression and his addiction. Not only have I been dealing with depression for 15 years, I went through a pretty serious drug addiction myself. I began to use meth and cocaine when I was 18, and I progressed quickly from smoking and snorting to using needles. I would look forward to my next high because it was the only time I just didn't hate myself. I met my dealer through a fellow user. My dealer became my first husband. We lived on the streets from campsites. We pretty much just lived in a tent. Any money we got would just go towards our next fix. It was a life I didn't anticipate for myself, and I became someone I never knew I could be. I didn't even recognize who I was at that point. It was so bad that I would do nearly anything to get my next hit. I gave myself to others just to cover the cost of what I needed to get high. My life was worthless in my eyes. The day my first husband and I were arrested, that was the day I'd put down my syringe, and I said I was done. And I didn't pick it up again, but my drinking got pretty bad. I was still living on the streets. I was going through a divorce. I wasn't sure how I was going to get out of this webbed life that I got myself into. I'd hit an all-time low. Looking back, I can see that God never stopped loving me. And right now I'm only alive because of him. I remember the first time I had OD'd, it was in a motel we were living at before we started staying in all the campsites. And I'd been known to mix the two drugs together before I would use them. And I remember being on my back and just not breathing. It was like my brain was telling me to stop breathing, and so I did. And I wish that I'd stopped at that point, that I realized what I was doing. But I kept going for about another year. My using intensified. I would need more and more. It got to the point where I was using so often that it would take an hour or more because my veins had gotten so small. There were situations where me dying would have been expected. It would have been unsurprising. But God was faithful, even the times when I wasn't. And I see how far I've come. And I know that none of it was because of me. I know it was all because of God. I know it was because of his love for me, which I'm still learning to comprehend. But I learned that God can take the most broken. And I know broken because what led me to my depression and eventually led me to my addictions were a bunch of issues and hurts that I'd gone through that I feel like tore me apart. They broke me from the inside. But God can take what's broken and he can use that for an amazing tool for the kingdom. But more than that, he can take what causes the brokenness, the hurt, and he can use that as your testimony, or in this case as mine, to reach someone. And there's a lot in my life that most people don't know. There's a lot of things that I've never shared with anybody, things that only God knows because of how ashamed I have been from them. And I know God has forgiven me, but the pain that I've caused myself is still there. And I think that's where people struggle the most. They think that because they still remember what they've done and they're still hurting, they think that they have to keep carrying their shame, and it overwhelms them and it just hits them to the point where they think they can't continue. But that's where the devil's lying. God forgave you the moment you asked. He took the sin, the shame, the anger, and he threw them as far as the east is to the west. You don't have to carry around your past. Don't forget where God has brought you from, but remember that he has brought you from there. You're not still stuck in your chains. And if you're bound by an addiction or depression, if you feel suicidal, and I've been in all those places, trust me when I say you don't have to stay there. God can free you from all of that. All you have to do is ask him. Give him your life. Let him work through you and see how much change and how much of a difference it is when you surrender it to God and say, okay, Lord, this is too big for me, and I know I don't deserve it, but because you died for me, you knew what I was going to do, and you still chose to die for me. I want to let you be the Lord of my life. And I really hope that through my testimony, someone can see that there is still hope for them. And you know that even if we do not see each other, even if we don't talk, even if we're just Facebook friends, I love you. You are on my heart. You will be in my prayers. And anytime you need someone, I'm here.